Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fallon. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. Today, we have 176 companies in GSD representing 73 countries around the world. We believe that Silicon Valley is a port to the rest of the world, and we're out there to be able to make them more successful. So with that, I have an incredible guest today on my show. Troy DeBraal serves as the CEO and president of Image. Before being inspired to create the world's first personalized AI by his business partner's frustration finding a photo on his phone, he serves as the president of Topaz Capital Ventures, LLC, a small R&D investment company located in beautiful San Diego, California. Troy started his career at a tech startup in 2000, eventually leading to product development and IP efforts, resulting in 3 patents. He moved on to lead digital transformation for numerous Fortune 100 companies at Synergy before landing leadership at KPMG, where he traveled for global consulting for the world's biggest enterprises. When not focused on innovation, he enjoys his family and making art and music. With that, I'd like to bring Troy on board. Hi, Troy. How you doing today?
Great, Gary. How are you today?
Good. So I went down through and I was looking at your background, and your journey is impressive, Troy, from graphic design and philosophy to leading AI ventures. Can you tell me what initially inspired you to explore technology and AI?
Yeah, technology was kind of happenstance in that I was planning on being a designer and designing great experiences, and started working for a startup company to do just that, and realized that, leadership was really where I kind of belonged, because I couldn't leave the leadership and management alone for how to do things a little bit better in our technology stack and our technology just in general. So kind of moved straight from design into how do we design better products, and that means managing a team. And AI in general, I had built many different systems through the years for lots of different companies. And as AI really started to take hold as a general market term, it's been around for a long time, but around 2015, 2016, I realized that the future was going to depend almost wholly on AI, and we needed to shift and get into that market as soon as we could. And that's kind of where our first inklings of a solution came to our thesis, and our problem for photo management was, if you're going to invent a system that can bend to the subjective perspective of an individual, it has to be AI. You can't do it any other way. So that's how we kind of dove deep into it.
So, it's interesting. You've got such a wide background, but, you also, when you're dealing with these large companies, you get into politics. And sometimes I remember myself, so I stepped out of my startup environment for a while and worked at Hewlett Packard. And one of the things, I remember the day when we had a meeting to talk about a meeting. And I couldn't believe it. I was so frustrated because I already had a couple of startups and had made a lot of money. And I was looking at it, I said, why in the world? And then I started people around the table, like posturing politically, to say things. And I was looking at them, and a lot of it was, didn't make any sense to me. I'll never forget this, Troy. I had a legal pad with me. Remember the old days, you used to bring legal pads or a notebook. And I started taking notes, but honestly, I was just scribbling things. I wasn't even paying attention because I thought this is really boring. But everybody thought that I was really taking the notes on it. We didn't have Otter, by the way, at the time. And anyhow, it's interesting. So fast forward to here where we are today and the kind of things you're doing. How different is it doing your own startup from working for a large enterprise company or a large consulting company?
It couldn't be any more different, I believe. Certainly the measures of success are the same. Are we helping our customers do better business? Are we helping people make money? Are we hitting our own performance marks? But the ability to be flexible in our working space and understand that innovation happens in the middle of all these processes. It doesn't happen when you're doing brainstorming or where you're doing a customer journey map or when you deliver a product. It's the little tiny decisions that you make along the way as you're trying to do something really difficult. And that I found so refreshing in our own company, because in a large company like KPMG, when I was working for a long time, that's impossible. You have a goal, you have metrics that you're set out to achieve along that goal, and making changes in the middle of that, even if it's for the better of the technology, the company, the space, whatever it is almost impossible without a huge amount of politics. So that's what I enjoy, I think, the most about having a smaller company, is you're flexible to do the right thing at the right moment.
If we've taken companies from, basically $0 revenue to exits, billion-dollar exits. So been on the journey right in the beginning when you start something and nobody really believes what you have is right. And I've heard this story a number of times. I was over at Stanford University with Stuart Butterfield, who founded Slack, and he told me directly he had to lay people off. And the only thing they had to sell is the project management tool, which is Slack, right, essentially. And I've heard the story many times. I remember when Elon got started with, bought into Tesla and got started when nobody believed in him. He said he was going to go to Mars. He said he was going to do the Boring Company, solar panels, all those different kind of things. And people were laughing at him. And the same thing with Bezos. I remember he was in Letterman in 1999 and they were saying, he's bleeding money. But look at him now. So if you believe in your dreams, how important is that for you, Troy, to believe in your dreams, to be able to focus on that?
I think it's the most essential thing, and especially in the entrepreneurial space, and trying to take something from an idea to something that's really impactful in the world, because there's so many steps in between a great idea and making something real and executing in an enterprise space. And if you don't have belief, those first 100 hurdles are going to feel like they are insurmountable. But if you really believe in your idea and have done the right research and understand, is this going to help people? Is this going to help people make money? Is this going to help people in their lives? That belief in the help side of it, I think, is what keeps us going, is that we know we can assist people. We know we can assist companies. So I think that is an essential piece, and maybe the most essential piece to being successful in this space.
No, I agree with you. And, can you, what was the biggest hurdle you faced when transitioning from corporate leadership at KPMG to launching your own AI startup? What was the biggest hurdle?
Ooh, I would say the biggest hurdle in that was, when you're in a startup environment, no matter your backing or what type of investment you have, you never have everything you need. And inevitably, you reach for something and it's not there. And so you have to not only be inventing at a broad perspective for the company, but you have to invent in the moments. And I think that was the toughest thing, is understanding that invention process happens at a micro level in the day, every day, and it happens at the broad company level. And you need to be focused on both, because if you put too much time into any one of those, either really trying to execute in the moment or trying to be really faithful to the broader vision, you're never going to be successful. You need to be somewhere in the middle.
Can you share a particular valuable lesson you learned from Retirement Synergy Systems or KPMG that shaped your leadership style today?
Great question. Absolutely. And so many, but I'll pick one that really has to do with people. Several points along the way. And I would say, the biggest example I can think of is working with H&R Block, where they came to us really needing to reinvent their digital business. They were losing to TurboTax. They were just losing in general. And they had not only a mandate, but a real business need to change that side of their business around. And so we went out into the field to do some research for them. And our research was completely counter to what the executives thought and our original thesis going out into the field of what we were trying to prove. And I would say the most valuable management lesson I learned in that was follow the data, because we did our research well, we had the facts, and we were still getting pushback from management. But we went through and dedicated our resources to making our team understand that, no, this is the right answer. We have to stick to this because this is the facts, and making sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could convince our team that that was the right thing to do. And making sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but also make sure that we could not only convince management that that was the right thing to do, but motivate our individual team to understand that that answer was going to be effective. And the difference between those two things, I would say, is the biggest lesson I learned, that you got to manage up and you got to motivate down. And that's the way that you get success out of a large team.
No, I agree. I've been doing this for almost 40 years and building companies all over the world. And leap of faith is really important, believing in your dreams. The other thing, I remember I took a course at Stanford University, and it was early in my career, and I had a course in storytelling, and we had an MBA professor, and also we had an acting coach come in. And it sounded kind of funny, but it was really hard because you got some of the brightest people on the planet Earth in this class, and we had to do extemporaneous speeches. And what I understood from that class is that 90% of building the unicorn is storytelling. It's not the product or service. The other thing is the networking contacts, the operational expertise, the access to capital, but all those things play as one, and we forget sometimes, right? And then having resilience. You talked about resiliency just now. Resiliency is important because if you don't believe in your dreams, there's ups and downs. There is no straight line, right? In building a unicorn. There's ups and downs and ins and outs. You may think you're going to go out of business, just like Elon did, right? Go out of business sometimes and roll it. But if you don't believe it, it ain't going to happen. And by the way, there's a thing called the self-fulfilling prophecy. In fact, I did a TED talk about that. If you believe in it, it comes true. You can manifest it for real. In fact, there was a study done at Stanford by Terman that did a longitudinal study. Two groups of kids, they both were the same intelligence, because they said the one was gifted. All of a sudden they became gifted and their IQs went up. So it works. So can you explain how MediaViz's AI personalizes multimedia management differently from existing solutions in the market?
Absolutely. And, this really hit upon our research and a wall that we hit when we started trying to develop this system. You first look out into the world, there's other people, there's bigger companies, there's smarter people than us. Why aren't they solving this problem that we recognize in the market? And if there are people trying to solve that problem, what are they doing wrong? What's going on with that? And so when we started approaching this problem, what we saw across the board, and which was a natural conclusion, I guess, is that all these systems were built on liking and preference. Like, they were built on trying to understand, what is this customer like? And let me go and find other things that are like that like. So if you liked a certain amount of content or you liked a certain photograph, I'm going to go and look for something that's parallel to that. And we realized very quickly that that has serious limitations. And that's why a lot of the systems that were trying to do what we ultimately built at that time in the market were failing, is because they were relying on this paradigm that ultimately was weak. And so what MediaViz AI does to personalize and to extract information about a collection is turn to perspective and to understand that that's not only somebody's preferences and their sense of aesthetics and what they think about any particular set of photographs that goes into understanding what's meaningful, but their biases play into that, their habits, their behaviors that even if you ask them, they couldn't possibly tell you about. But, and this is where MediaViz AI really shines, all of those things, their preferences, their biases, their actions, their habits, their specific aesthetic choices are all embedded like fingerprints in a set of photographs. And so instead of asking a person to give you a half-baked answer, we went the other route and we decided, okay, well, let's train an AI that can learn how to subjectively bend to the context of a collection. So it can go in and analyze 10,000 photos, 1 million photos, whatever it may be, and understand where to bend its perspectives so that it can recognize, these are the biases that I can't ask about. These are the preferences that we see.
Give us some examples, Troy, real world examples.
Sure. So for instance, if you have a person, let's say a consumer that is shooting photographs all the time, just a regular consumer, right? They're collecting thousands of photographs on their phone. They won't be able to tell you if you ask them that I like to shoot people in a tightly cropped group where those people fill the frame mostly, and it doesn't include a lot of the background. Whereas you'll go to the very next person, their friend, and look in their phone, and you'll find that photos are shot from farther out, and you're including more of the background, And they're doing that stylistic choice very much on purpose, but they have no idea that they're doing it. It's just how they shoot photographs. So if we ask them in a survey or something and trying to figure out how do we get to the point where we understand this person, that would be a useless question. But if we look at a large enough set of photos for those two individuals, we can learn that without asking them anything. And same thing for color profiling, right? People tend to shoot photographs with a certain color profile built in, even if they're at different color look or different locations and different scenes. They seek them out because they're meaningful to them individually. If you ask that person what their favorite color is, they may say blue. But if you look at their full collection of photos, you'll find that it's blue with some turquoise and they highlight with orange. They're understanding complementary colors that they can't even tell you about, but they're shooting that way and you can see it in their photos.
So, this is great. And, I had Rick Orloff, so the former chief security officer at Apple, is a good friend of mine, and eBay. And, we've had many conversations, but, one of the things that we have to think about is what are some of the ethical considerations you've encountered in creating AI that deeply understands individual behaviors and preferences?
Absolutely. It's such a huge focus for us because we started out with the individual in mind. How do we create an AI that can bend to the subjective perspective of a person? So you're learning a lot about a person in that. And how we've dealt with that is two different ways. One, we only license our content ethically. So if we're going to do training, we don't scrape photos. We go out and we license that from individuals and companies, and we make sure that we have all.
But I mean, it could be used. Like people put their photos online, and we have multi-agent large language models, and we built the cancer vaccine. I did actually using my models, and I don't know anything. I'm not a smart guy. I'm just a poor country boy. Grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania, but these tools are so powerful we have today. For instance, I had a relative of mine has cancer, and I actually I took all her images and I ran it through this multi-agent large language model, and it came up with the protocol that she needs to take. And I have exactly, not like this. This is a real-time large language model. So it's not looking at stuff 2 years back. It's like right this second.
Sure.
And it went to all the journals out there. It actually went down through and told me who to talk to. It said what the regime should look like, what the probability of success is, where to do it outside of the country, where there can be other things that could be done. It's unbelievable. And some of the things you're talking about, to all of the audience out there, these are going to change our lives. Because the challenge that we have is infobesity, isn't it, Troy? We have too much data around us, and things that'll make sense of the data around us to live our lives better. Because that same tool that you have can help shape somebody in a positive way, their well-being, with empathy and compassion. It can shape things. I'm a clinical psychologist in addition to other things. And I can tell you, I didn't go to finish my PhD because I didn't like it. But what happened is I understood that there's a lot of things that shape your life, and this could be one of them. It could tell if you're depressed. It could tell you what kind of things you need to do to make yourself happy.
Sure.
Insights into you, right? Like we've never had before.
And that's what, I'm so glad you said that, because that's kind of the second part of that is, I think we were one of the first companies, and that's what our patents are based around, is a personal AI. And so all of our AI, even before the word agentic AI existed, are one-to-one. If you put your photo collection in, that data doesn't touch any other data. It doesn't learn from any other data. You get your own personal AI that's assigned to just you. And that's how we deal with that problem, is we try to make sure that it's a closed loop for any individual's data and going into that model to train it. But we don't keep that individual data about the individual, right? We just keep the model. And that's what allows us to do all of our abilities.
You secured multiple patents in digital imaging and emergency response. What's your process for identifying ideas worth patenting?
Oh, research. I always try and take it from a very personal standpoint, though, of, is this a problem that I recognize? Go talk to lots of other people. Is it a problem that you recognize? And then going out to the company level. So start with the individual, go to the group think, and then go to the company. And if there isn't a solution at any of those levels and everybody has the pain point, that's something that we should solve and patent.
One of the things that we've done over the years. In fact, at Eva, we had 19 patents when we got started. People actually, you can look in TechCrunch in 2016 when I was talking about the beginning of generative AI. So I get interviewed by TechCrunch, and so did my partner, David Yang. But one of the things that happened is we understood that the market was going to fundamentally change. Everything's going to change because of data, right? For all of us out there, I mean, each one of us has about 300,000 items in our own personal cloud. The entire web in 1996 was 257,000 websites. You each have more information in your personal cloud than the entire web. The problem is your world is following the same trajectory. By that, I mean doubling every year. In 5 years with the Internet of Things, you're going to have 10 million items. Think about this. How many times each one of us out here has said in the last 2 weeks, did you get my message? When did you send it? Mail. I sent it 3 days ago. Let me check. I can't find it. Will you send it again? We're in this state that I've been talking about infobesity a long time, but we're in that state. People don't even check their email anymore. They're using things like WhatsApp and Telegram and LinkedIn and Facebook because it's a filter to figure through the garbage. And so now we've got to have tools just like yours that looks through picture, unstructured data, that understands the kind of things that are out there that can be able to help us live our lives better. The one thing you said, it's really interesting, Troy, I talk about this a lot, is that, it's like your guardian angel, kind of like your grandmother that unconditionally loves you and cares about you, because if we do that in a positive way, that can help our lives live longer, live better.
Absolutely. And just serve the individual. That's what we're all about. Serve the individual, certainly from a multimedia and photo perspective. It's amazing the statistics that we've borne out in our research. It doesn't matter if you're talking to an individual, a grandma, an influencer, a professional photographer, or a company. Almost across the board, 15 to 20% of the photos that they've taken will be really meaningful. 60% will be just photos I took, and 20% are junk, which means you could take away 80% of their content and most people would not notice at all. And to me, that's not only a problem that needs to be solved, but an opportunity not only to clear out the servers and stop paying for things that we're not using and junking up the internet with content that's never going to be used, but again, connecting people with what's really meaningful to them. Let's get them that 20% and only that 20%. Let's get rid of all this junk. It's not servicing anybody.
Yeah, no, you're right. And if we don't do it, we're going to have a problem because there's too much data around us. Let's talk. So balancing innovation, creativity, and family life can be challenging. What personal habits or routines do you use to be able to maintain a balance, a work-life balance, and creativity?
It's a great question. I have pretty strict hours where after I exit for the day, I don't do anything that's work-related. I try to really segment my professional life from my personal life. And in this, I've been a creator since I was a kid. I paint, I DJ, I do lots of different creative aspects to life, but I try and make sure those are separated as well. So I have to shoot a lot of photographs for work. It's just essential that I constantly create content. But when I do that, I'm going to create content for work. And when I'm going to create content for my personal life, I just don't do anything that's similar at all. So I think segregation is important in that.
No, that's great. So I've got some rapid fire closing question for you. What's one book or resource you recommend most often to aspiring entrepreneurs or innovators?
I would say Thinking Fast and Slow is the best book I've ever read and can change people's lives of how they understand other people in a business, creative, or any other context. So that's the one thing I always recommend.
If you had to sum up your professional philosophy or personal mantra in one sense, what would it be, Troy?
Keep going. Keep going. That's been it from the beginning, because every great thing starts out as something small and grows to something bigger and evolves, and you never know until you get the end of it. Keep going.
What's next for Troy? Any exciting projects or announcements you're working towards?
Absolutely. I think our most exciting thing here at MediaViz we're working towards is bridging the gap from photos into video and kind of leaving the still photo world behind where it's going to be behind, because everything is going to turn into video. There won't even be still photographs pretty soon. And our launch into that is coming this year.
Excellent. Well, listen, we're coming to the top of the show, Troy. When we're done, if you could just stay on, I'll come back on. And to all of you out there, thank you for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. These are top global startups. Troy, thanks for your time out of your busy schedule. It's really appreciated. And thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. We'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Gary.